Relationships are hard. Not always. Sometimes it can feel like you're floating blissfully through a time continuum, unencumbered by the ordinary anxieties of heavier hearts. But reality eventually hits, and there's in-laws, power struggles, jealousy, guilting your husband out of attending the funeral of one of his best friends. Normal relationship squabbles. Now rest assured, my old lady and I are solid, but there's a lot of people struggling out there, and for some reason, they love to post their stories on the internet. So two things are happening right now. We're gonna have a chill-ass time enjoying these stories together as I narrate them, and you're not going to complain about this video being heavily auditory because you are an adult with an attention span, not a child addicted to alpha male core montages on TikTok. Secondly, we're gonna get a little bit intimate. Like old times, because it's been way too long since I got a good sniff of y'all sons of bitches. Oh, you smell just like I remember. Let's get into it. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I don't have the best relationship with my husband's mom. Since day one, she tried to make remarks and compare me to her. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt so soon, but this is kind of a red flag, right? Girl, just because you're dating my son doesn't mean he's not my man. Janet, this is a little awkward. You may have a younger face and a supple pair of breasts, you little rat, but nothing makes him harder than my beef stroganoff. Sweetheart, your mom is talking about your penis again. She continues. She then tried to get on my good side and started overly praising everything I do and sometimes even copying me, like that one time when she literally dyed her hair purple just like mine, and when everyone pointed out how ridiculous she looked, she actually blamed me and accused me of trying to make a joke out of her. I mean, that's like a flag soaked in goat's blood levels of red. The purple hair, Mom? Come on, Mom. So anyways, my husband and I took 2 weeks off of work to go visit some places out of the country. Tourism, in other words. Thing is, I was the one who saved up for and arranged for the trip. My husband was responsible for booking the tickets, as every husband typically is. My husband's mom wanted to come along and threw temper tantrums when I said no. She called, texted, sent people to talk to me into letting her come, even threatened to call the police and make some complaint up to get us to stay if she can't come. I'm sorry, you want to do something fun with your husband? No, I'm calling the cops.
911, what's your emergency?
Yeah, my daughter-in-law has AIDS, she has the audacity, and she killed JFK and Tupac. That'll teach him. Honestly, Mom is kind of on one right now. We don't know the context of this relationship, obviously, but the problem usually arises when there is a strong mother-in-law and a son who is too much of a mama's boy and a spineless weasel to do anything about it, to set boundaries, right? Because your relationship needs to be yours, not your mother's. My husband said we should just take her, but I told him he was wrong to tell her about the trip in the first place. He gave me an ultimatum, said he wouldn't go if she can't come, and I told him I'll gladly call his bluff, which made him take his words back and say, fine, I will tell her to stop it because we won't take her. Things got quieter. Suspiciously quieter. The day the trip came and we got to the airport at 2 p.m., my husband was walking ahead of me and was looking left and right like he was looking for someone. I asked him, but he didn't respond. He led me to the waiting area, and first thing I saw was his mom standing there with her luggage. I froze in my spot. I felt a cold wave washing over me, and I was fuming inside. She and my husband were hugging. That's when I quietly turned around and started walking towards the exit. My husband followed me while shouting at me to stop. He tried to stop me, but I told him off the harshest way possible, that bastard. He tried to say I was overreacting and that his mom was there anyway, and I should let it go and not mess the trip up for us. Don't ruin the trip, sweetheart. It's just my mom, right? I told him he and his mom could still go and that I was going to stay home. Have fun, asshole. Sorry I ad-libbed. She didn't say that last part, but maybe she did. I went home and sobbed into my dog's fur for several minutes. I mean, what'd your dog ever do to you? You couldn't just chose a pillow like a normal emotionally distressed woman? Had to ruin your dog's coat of beautiful fur? Bitch. Turned out he booked her a ticket without me knowing. An hour later, he came home yelling and raging about how pathetic and spiteful I was to walk out and go home and ruin the trip last minute. I told him he caused this to happen. He said that I was being so hard on his mom, it's ridiculous. I refused to fight anymore, but he kept on berating me and then called my family to tell them that the trip was canceled and that it was because of me. My family said that I shouldn't have ruined it for myself and should have sucked it up and done my best to enjoy. Did I really? overreact? Sounds like a C-tier Hallmark movie plot, but it's actually someone's real-life relationship. Your husband is more spineless than a jellyfish, and your mother-in-law is jealous that you're the one banging him and not her, it seems. It's weird, I know, but the fact that you're being gaslit into thinking it's your fault that the trip was ruined is insane. It might be time to just move continents and open up a Tinder profile. Honestly, leave his ass at home. I'm kidding, kind of. But this is the exact opposite of what happens in healthy relationships. We don't know the extent of your actual relationship with your mother-in-law, but the fact that your husband went behind your back to invite her on this trip that you planned, even though he's fully aware of the tension between you and his mom, especially after telling you that he would handle it and he would tell her that it was going to be a trip for just you two.
He's a useless shite, that boy.
I don't know your relationship, but it might be time for some real introspection. It might also be time to talk about today's video sponsor, and I expect your pants to be fully off by the time we continue. You're probably wondering, hey Leon, cool headphones, is this another Raycon sponsorship? You're damn right it is, baby. These guys have not only kept my lights on over the years with your help, they keep delivering us quality products at incredibly affordable prices. Wireless earbuds? I've told you about these 300 times because they sound amazing, look cool, and have incredible functionality for something so damn sleek. I do not leave the house or start a workout without them. Oh, and they're everyday headphones? More comfortable than my favorite pair of sweatpants. I'm talking soft, plush, and delicate, with teeth chattering sound. They rule. Put them on me all day, I'll listen to whatever I want, and my ears will beg for more when I take them off. But here is the deal. Raycon has grown considerably in the premium audio space with the aforementioned products that have tens of thousands of 5-star reviews, but they recently expanded their entire business with the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech. The Magic 180 cable is an innovative take on an everyday necessity, 180-degree articulation, and magnetic tip switching for all-in-one compatibility. What started with reliable earbuds has blossomed into a full-blown tech company. My baby's all grown up. The best part, though, it's Black Friday time, and that means Raycon has some early face-melting promotions as usual for you to take advantage of. 20% off everything with select products, up to 50% off. So get your holiday started off right and go to my link in the description, buyraycon.com/LeonLush to take advantage of these early Black Friday deals today. 20 to 50% off. Tell them old Leon sent you. You know I appreciate you. Bless your heart. I'll see you soon. Oftentimes people that post these kinds of stories to the internet are maybe being gaslit in a way, and they just need to vent and try to hear from other people to make sure that they're not the crazy one. And oftentimes they're right. They're the ones that are in the right. It's seemingly, we don't know the full context, but then there's the people that are so unself-aware that they post these stories looking for confirmation that they're not a dickhead, and in fact, they're just a complete piece of shit, or their spouse, or their mother, or one or the other. I've been married to my second husband, Mike, for 4 years now. He's a jokester and loves to crack jokes all the time. Wow, that's so relatable. Maybe me and Mike would get along. He especially likes to joke with my brother Ethan and his wife. Ethan used to be okay with it till he started complaining about Mike taking it too far with his jokes. Some context about Ethan. He and his wife couldn't have kids, so they adopted a boy, Joey, 2 years ago. Mike has been making silly, lighthearted jokes that involve Joey's bio parents as a way to mess with Ethan and his wife. I already talked to Mike, and I'm telling you that he means no harm. He was just trying to get them to react. The lack of self-awareness in that paragraph is profoundly staggering, but we'll continue. So fast forward to New Year's Eve, my parents hosted a big celebratory dinner, and Ethan and his wife came. While we were eating dinner, Mike decided to tell a knock-knock joke to Ethan. He said, "Knock, knock." Ethan laughed and said, "Who's there?" Mike replied, "Joey's bio parents." Then he bursted out laughing. Silence took over and Ethan's facial expressions changed. His wife called Mike an idiot, to which Mike replied with, "Hey, relax. It was just a joke." An argument ensued and dinner was paused. My parents suddenly told Mike to leave, which I thought was too harsh. I tried to speak to them and get them to calm down, but Mom insisted that Mike leave. We left and Mike was complaining the whole time about how they overreacted. I called Mom later and she told me Mike was out of line with his hurtful jokes about this touchy topic and told me I was wrong for defending him and saying he was just joking. She said he ruined New Year's for the family, but I told her it was her and Dad who ruined the New Year's celebration for escalating the situation and kicking him out. I told her he could talk to them, but again, they were the ones who ruined New Year's celebration. She called me delusional for this statement and hung up. We haven't talked to them for days. I tried contacting Ethan, but no response. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the problem is. Her husband seems like a stand-up guy. There's nothing funnier than poking fun at your in-laws that are having trouble conceiving, so they have to adopt, and then you make fun of them for what is, for some people, one of the most sensitive topics on the planet, which is the inability to conceive. That is fucking hilarious. And then the old, it's just a joke defense. Oh, it doesn't matter what you say as long as you say it's just a joke after. It can't be hurtful. I'm just a funny jokester. I'm just trying to get a reaction out of you. Fucking loser. Hey, Aunt Chrissy, most people lose weight when they get chemotherapy. Somehow you gained weight, but you still lost all your hair. It's just a joke. I'm not actually sure what's more sad, this dude's existence or the fact that his wife doesn't have the self-awareness to realize how big of a piece of shit her husband is and went to the internet to try to justify him making fun of her sister and brother for not being able to conceive children and then making fun of their adopted child. Like, it's fun. Woo! You're the asshole. Your husband likes to hurt people. It has nothing to do with jokes. As I'm rereading this paragraph, the only sentence you need to read in this whole thing to get the picture is, Mike has been making silly, lighthearted jokes that involve Joey's bio parents as a way to mess with Ethan and his wife. Who the fuck does that, dude? No. Little vibe check here. How you guys doing? Okay, you happy you're not in a relationship after hearing a couple of these? Or do you still want to be? Are you jealous of Nigel and I's relationship? Or do you think that if you were in a relationship, you could do it better than these people posting to the internet? I don't know. It's not, like I said, sometimes it's easy, but sometimes, you just have to make fun of your in-laws' inability to conceive, and that's all there is to it. Didn't mean to tease you with just that little taste of Nigel. That's right, we got the handheld mic. We're up close and personal. Nigel, just a little throwback, just a little ode to the OG Leon Lush. Next up, I'm 25 and my wife is 23. We're having our first child together. She is currently 9 months pregnant and could give birth anytime in the next couple of weeks. The only major fight we have had throughout her pregnancy happened a couple days ago, and it was about what we were going to name our child. It all started when we found out the gender of the baby. We didn't do a gender reveal and decided to find out the gender at one of her checkups because we didn't want to spend time making 2 lists of names and then have to get rid of one after. Big up to this couple right off the bat for not doing a gender reveal party. I'm not sure there's any new age American tradition I hate quite as much. So after we found out we were having a boy, we sat down together and made a list. Almost all the names she suggested were normal until the one that caused me to write this post. She suggested we name our son Mune or Moone, or like a clever play on money. Mune. I'm going to go with Mune. Moon, or maybe just a funny spelling of moon. Whatever it is. Love it. She told me the name was from this movie she watched when she was younger and that it always stuck with her. I told her the name was a little out there and he would get made fun of for it. She claimed he wouldn't, and we started going back and forth, trying to decide whether to add the name to the list or not. Eventually, she agreed to keep the name off the list. We picked some that we liked, and I thought that was that. Listen, if my wife suggested the name Moone or Mune during the child's name deliberations, she's getting pushed down the stairs, and that is that. Later on in her pregnancy, her mom decided to throw a baby shower as it was her first grandchild, and my wife's pregnancy was almost over and we hadn't celebrated once. It was fine for the most part until we started to open the gifts. Most of them were normal baby things like diapers and bottles until we got to her mom's gift. My wife opened the gift bag and pulled out a blue handmade blanket. It seemed normal enough at first until my wife unfolded it, and lo and behold, there was the name Mune written on the blanket. When I saw it, I was pissed, but didn't want to cause a scene, so I stayed quiet. Real G's move in silence, like lasagna. Well played, friend. You have to handle that after the fact, even though mom-in-law is being a bit of a pill. After that reveal, I had family members come up to me and ask me about the name and why I hadn't told them. I didn't know what to tell them, as I didn't have a clue about this either and just had to embarrassingly tell my family that, which pissed me off even more. Once the event ended, me and my wife went home and I started to question her about the name. She got defensive and told me that it was a good name and that I was overreacting about it. I brought up the earlier points and told her it was a stupid name for a kid, and if she wanted to name something Mune so bad, she could use the name for a dog. Reasonable compromise, honestly. She got upset and called her mom to come get her. After she left, she called me and told me she wouldn't be coming back for a while. Everyone I've talked to about this has said I'm not the asshole, but now that my wife has been gone and I've been thinking about it, I feel like I could have handled this situation better. Am I an asshole for not wanting to name my son Mune? If you try to force a name into the conversation that your spouse clearly isn't comfortable with or doesn't like, that's selfish. There are so many options. You can name your child whatever you want. Obviously, you should consider the child a little bit in that. But to say you're going to give it up and then go behind his back and talk about it and then have your mother-in-law make a little cool piece of clothing with the name Mune on it to maybe try and twist your husband's arm, that's some slimeball hoe behavior. Now, we all know there's been this proliferation of obnoxious names in the last decade or two, specifically in like celebrity circles, like Kim Kardashian's kids, all these actresses, they name their kids all these dumb fucking names. And it is what it is. If you're Kim Kardashian and you name your kid North and West and South and East, no one's going to say anything because you're Kim Kardashian and your family's fucked regardless. But if you're just like a normal pleb, you can't be naming your kid Mune. Well, you can name your kid whatever you want. The point is, it needs to be a mutual decision. It needs to be a compromise. Everything in a marriage and a relationship should be some level of compromise. And it's not this like go behind the back, try to get a fast one on my partner to try to do something I really want and they don't want. No, you got to meet in the middle somewhere. Naming a baby is a 2 yes or 1 no situation. You do not name a child something your partner does not agree with. You find a compromise. This is the start of many necessary compromises in life, and it is a total asshole move to unilaterally decide on a child's name despite your partner's misgivings. That is basically what I was trying to say, just much more eloquent. Sometimes these Redditors really know what they're talking about. You need to put your foot down hard on this because what she's doing is 100% not okay. She's absolutely not mature enough for motherhood if she cannot find a reasonable compromise on this. She's not wrong though. Like, listen, when I found out I was having a boy, I wanted to name my son Frodo Hogwarts Dwayne The Rock Johnson III Jr. I thought it would be fucking hilarious and awesome because it's like all the things I love in one name. And it's obviously all about me, not about my kid being relentlessly ridiculed for having a stupid fucking name. But my wife was like, no, if you do that, I'm gonna leave you. And I was like, okay, I guess we'll come up with something more in the middle. And we were agreed on Jackson. Okay, we're more reasonable. Mune. But it was in a book I read as a child, and it's really stuck with me. And I've spent my whole life trying to court a partner so I could eventually conceive and have a seed planted in me that gestated for 9 months. And I shoved that seed through the vaginal canal and out into the world as it takes its first breath, only till I could call it Mune, which is a name that stuck with me from a book I read as a child. Hey, grow up. All right, last one, and hang in there because this is a fucking doozy if it's even real, quite frankly. I'll admit I'm biased right off the bat. I couldn't stand her. I call her his ex to myself and others. He called her his friend. We're all in our early 40s. She died recently. Aneurysm. I've been with him 10 years now, but he'd known her for 20 plus. The way he tells it, they were friends in college, decided to date, got married, then realized they weren't a great couple and decided to just be friends. All that happened years before I met him. He was clear early on that she was important, quote unquote. A couple months into dating, it came up that his friend was actually his ex-wife. He explained the above to me, saying she was one of the closest friends and that it was purely platonic. I expressed some discomfort at him being so close to an ex, and he told me, that's fine. If you have a serious issue with it, let me know and save us some time. I'll choose her. I like you and all, but I've known her for over 12 years and she's one of the most important people in my life. You'll have to be okay with that if you want us to be a thing. Now, when I read the initial part of this post, I could see both sides of the argument. If you're married or in a serious relationship with someone, it's one thing for them to have a amicable relationship with an ex-husband or an ex-wife or ex-girlfriend or boyfriend. It is a little strange for them to remain absolutely best friends after deciding to end their marriage. That is unusual, right? Like I think it's wonderful when people can mature and be old and grow enough to be, remain friends or courteous with each other and move on and have other relationships that are prosperous, especially when there's kids in the equation, especially. But to be married and then be like, well, we're not meant to be married. We're just meant to be platonic best friends. It's like, that's just a little strange. So initially I kind of saw both sides, but as I continued to read, it got a little more insane. When we were engaged, I asked again. He gave me this perplexed look and asked, why would us getting married affect my friendship? I sucked it up and went along. I resented every moment of knowing her, especially when we had to be social. She understood some part of him I couldn't. Her husband was friends with mine as well, so it's not like I could use him as an angle. He'd have lunch with the ex, they'd go to their geeky movies and whatever. The few times I brought it up, he said, we had this conversation before. You had your chance to back out. Clearly some intense jealousy here, and probably not because of a threat of some sort of physical relationship or intimacy, But the fact that she is filling his emotional wells in a way that you aren't is maybe almost as devastating as some sort of physical adultery. The point remains, though, from the beginning, he was very clear and upfront about it before they got engaged, before they got married. He's like, hey, we used to be married, didn't work out. We've stayed really good friends. If that's a problem, tell me now, save us some time. So to his credit, he was very clear and upfront and was like, this is a friend of mine. If you can't handle it, we should cut this off now because nothing's going to change. And she, lacking brain cells or foresight, was like, well, you know, maybe if we just get married and I make him put a ring on it, then he'll realize he's not allowed to see her anymore because that's how that works. No, it gets worse. She died after they had lunch the other day on the way to her car. He spent a bunch of time crying, but honestly, I was relieved. He was working with her husband on funeral planning. I told him, you don't think you're going, do you? My argument summed up, she's dead, so she's not a factor anymore. He doesn't get to use his she's my friend excuse since she doesn't exist anymore. He had his cry for a couple days. He gets to be done with mourning her already. There's no need for him to go to her funeral since I wouldn't want her at his. He was the angriest I've ever seen him when I told him that, replying that he'll be going no matter how I feel and that he's willing to burn this to the fucking ground while holding up his wedding band. Besides you, she was the closest friend in my life. Honestly, the fact that he considers his wife a friend after being treated like this is remarkable, to be frank. Him, her husband, and my sisters are calling me an insensitive asshole over this, all saying that there was no romantic aspect to their relationship and that I'm heartless. Her husband went so far as calling me a ghoul for how I've reacted. I never felt the relationship was appropriate, and I hid that for years because I wanted to be with my husband. Now that she's gone, I don't feel I should have to hide it anymore and can speak freely. Am I the asshole for just wanting him to be done with her and for him not to attend the funeral? The reason I'm grappling with whether this is a real human being or just a real story is the fact that after years of dealing with this woman and going through these phases of your husband being best friends with his ex and you kind of dealing with it all the while being incredibly jealous, now she's dead, and the fact that you can't hide your glee over her death. Why would you not at least just be like, okay, go to her funeral, say your piece, put it to rest, and then you can have what you want is your husband all to yourself. But after a decade of them going on lunch dates and you dealing with them seeing their geeky movies, it's her funeral where you draw the line? A 1 to 2 hour service where there can be closure and then he can mourn and move on and now you've got what you want? There is no way a real human being could behave like this. And then to an extent where they would go online to try to get affirmation that their behavior is acceptable. I refuse to believe it. You know, honey, I don't like it, but you guys can keep having your lunch dates and go out and watch your geeky movies and grab your buttered popcorn and giggle with each other, you old exes. I hate it, to be honest, but I'll allow it. But if she dies, motherfucker, I swear to God, you better not step foot in that bitch's funeral or it is going to be your neck. Like, what are you talking about? What? Now, clearly you're evil, but you're also dumb because if you were evil and smart, you would have used the death and the funeral as the perfect opportunity to console him and be his shoulder to cry on while he goes to the funeral, mourns the loss of his best friend, and then has to inevitably move on from that. And you were there for him the whole time, so you have what you want. But, you know, why would someone this broken have any sort of brain inside of their skull to begin with? I guess they just probably wouldn't. The moral of the story is, you know, relationships can sometimes be tough. But if you're in a position where you're running to Reddit for some therapeutic wisdom or bias confirmation, you might already be past the point of return to normalcy in your relationship. And Godspeed to you. And additionally, Godspeed to you for joining me one more time on this channel. I don't know really ever what's going to happen from week to week here, but the fact that some of you guys continue to show up and join me is just a real treat and a treasure, and I appreciate you for it. If you could do me a favor before you guys go, just go to your local grocery store and pick up a box of freeze pops, head on home and pop those babies in the freezer. Give them about 4 to 5 hours to freeze thoroughly. Take 2 of those freeze pops out of the freezer, a blue and a green preferably after they're fully frozen, then go into the bathroom, pull your pants down, sit on the toilet, and beat on your dick to the beat of Everlong by Foo Fighters until it turns black and blue. Then you stand up and you hip thrust that motherfucking like button for me. I appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Peace.